Welcome to MBE Live, where we discuss minority and women-owned businesses, specifically in professional services, getting certified as minority or women-owned businesses with the city, state, or county. I'm Michelle Flagg of Red Acre Solutions.
And I'm Sarah Ware of Ware Realty Group.
Okay, so today's topic will discuss the ABCs of certification. So we're going to cover MBE certification, WBE certification. So those are all local municipal certifications. Then we'll go on to DBE, which is for federal transportation projects. So that's your CTA, PACE, Metra. And then we'll go on to BEP, which is the state. And then 8A and WOSB.
Maybe not in that order. So I guess we can start with the MBE, WBE, the local municipal certifications.
Correct.
And so just as an overview, local meaning City of Chicago. So those are certifications that are 5 years. They are good for 5 years with a certification renewal every year. And it helps with the city contracts that are anything government backed when it comes to construction, professional services. Those are the two big ones: architectural services, sales. So my background is in real estate, so for me it helps from the standpoint of like the schools, and when the city has a lot of real estate property, so you have to think about it from that perspective. But for the most part, it is heavy construction related, a lot of housing analysis, a lot of consulting work.
Yeah, and actually there was one that came out for social media.
Yes.
So if there's anyone who has a social media company, check out I think it was the Department of
Cultural Services and Special Events.
Special events, yeah.
And so it's due mid-February, so that is something that actually is pretty exciting because, as you know, the city has a fair amount of events and they have a department that takes care of a lot, so that could be something that you're interested in. I think the pre-bid meeting is the 24th, if I'm not mistaken, but it's all online on the City of Chicago's website.
Yeah. And so so that's MBE and WBE. And for the city, the sister agencies, they accept MBE, WBE certification. And for the general requirements for that, and this is the case for most of your certifications that are based upon you being a minority or a woman, it has to be 51% owned by whoever's claiming that certification. So if you're claiming to be a woman-owned business, then it needs to be 51% or more owned by a woman. If it's a minority-owned business, then it needs to be 51% owned by a minority. So you can have multiple partners, and you can have partners that are non-minority, or if you're women-owned, if you're looking to get your WBE, you can have male partners or male owners in the business, but the women must comprise at least 51% or more of that business for it to qualify.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so my business, I'm certified as minority women-owned DBE currently, and a couple other ones that I'm working on, but for the most part, those are the main ones that I try to stay up to breast. And then Michelle, you're certified in
M and WBE with the City of Chicago.
So the next certification was the BEP, which is Business Enterprise Program, and that is with the state. And I am certified. I think I let mine lapse. I have to double check, but I think Michelle can kind of go over that one to give everybody a feel of what that's for and how that can help them.
Yeah, and so
or their business.
Yes. So with the BEP, that's the state's program, and that's administered through CMS. So that's Central Management Systems or Services, and they handle the buying for the state. So some agencies will have their own website that you can go to find out about procurement, but if there are any goals attached to a project, then it's with BEP. And so they don't distinguish between minority or women. They're all comprised in the BEP program. So those are projects with, say, for example, the state lottery. That was a RFP that was put out, and then that had certain BEP goals. Some of your higher education, so the state universities, they also have their own procurement website, but they look to see that you're BEP certified for their goals. And so with that certification, they'll recognize the city of Chicago, but it's not reciprocal. And so what that means is when it's not reciprocal, it means that they'll accept your documentation, but there may be additional documentation that you have to fill out. So your application may be shorter, but you still have to fill out additional information. For example, there's a lobbying affidavit that you have to fill out
Correct.
with the BEP certification. Let me see, there's a lobbying affidavit. You register with the the election board. And again, this is all related to lobbying. And then there's certain...
If you have any relationship that you just have to disclose. So that's really the reason that they do it, because I know it's a lot of paperwork for all of them. It's a lot of the same paperwork, but a lot of people wonder why do they ask for so much paperwork, because they are mandated by the government, local, federal, and so they just want to make sure when funds are being spent, where your company is getting funds from. Is it part of a lobbying or, because there's no conflict of interest between your business and the actual municipality that you're doing business with.
Exactly.
And I think there are some that is fine. Just want to make sure you disclose it. So there are some disclosure responsibilities that you have to make sure you are in line with.
Yeah. And the BEP program is similar, just like all of the other programs, where you have to be 51% either owned by a minority or women-owned business.
Correct.
And then we'll also have at the end of the video, we'll list all of the websites for obtaining the certification. So we've gone over city, we've gone over state, and now we'll cover federal.
Yes, correct, federal. And I'm still researching the federal side because I'm trying to get to a stage where I'm comfortable, but I think I need to have some more projects, even though most people don't have to. I have chosen to kind of wait a little bit on that, maybe this year, by 2020.
Technically, you do have a federal one, the DBE.
Oh, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll talk. That's a nice segue into DBE.
Well, I just want to have one side note for the DBE. So even though I'm more professional services, there may not be a lot of opportunities that you can go after, but the technical services that I am exposed to outweighs the actual the time frame that it took for me to get the paperwork together. So for instance, I have my DEB through the Illinois Department of Transportation, and I have technical services. So I am meeting an accountant who came in last year, and I had 30 hours, and I forwarded all my hours to have that service, and they did all my bookkeeping on a monthly basis. They cleaned up my books because accounting to me was a huge issue. They have technical services such as business planning. They have a reimbursable, up to $1,500, a reimbursable account that you can take advantage of, which they say most people are not taking advantage of. But don't look at it as, I don't have any skill set to go after construction. But the technical services to me far outweigh that as well, because one industry like the city, they don't have as many technical services. They have some lightweight training downtown that anybody can take, but these are dedicated to my business, and it exposes you to a greater audience in the long run.
Yeah. And so actually, Sarah, you bring up a really good point, because I'm also DBE certified, but my certification is through the city of Chicago. And at the time, it was a good idea because I have my MBE and WBE certification with them. But as Sarah mentioned, IDOT, she's certified through IDOT for DBE. And they're all part of the Illinois Uniform, what was the C?
Illinois,
and I had that
ULC. It's something that we tend to always forget because there's so many acronyms, and like as Michelle stated,
Unified Certification Program.
We'll put those at the end in the links because it is a project. So I do have a spreadsheet with all my certifications when they expire, and so that's just my tracking mechanism. They have CRMs that you can develop, but I just have a basic spreadsheet that I can put in my calendar, and when it expires, maybe 6 months before, just to get it in my mind to start the process.
Yeah. So the DBE, you can be certified, or your host agency can be one of the agencies that accepts federal or receives federal funds in the area of transportation.
And host meaning Metro, CTA, City of Chicago. So those are the host agencies he's talking about. I think there's 7 of them for the DBE, aka Disadvantaged Business Enterprise.
Right.
And so we're with 2 different ones, even though it's recognized by the same. We can go after the same project, so it doesn't exclude you. It's just the technical services that the host agency may provide are a little different than others.
So, for example, I'm the City of Chicago is my host agency, but I can also, or sometimes there are more IDOT projects that are in the area of right-of-way, and there are more tollway projects that are in the area of right-of-way, which is my specialty. And so that was one of the reasons or rationales for getting DBE certified. Let me see. CTA also has right-of-way opportunities coming up with the Red Line extension as well as Metro.
And so how did you find out about that, and how do you know it's coming up? Because that's where you want to get in on the front end when it's in conversation as opposed to when it's actually out here. So when
yes,
did you find out?
Definitely. So a couple of ways. One, for most federal projects, especially ones that might involve eminent domain, where they might have to acquire property, there's certain they have to abide by federal rules, and one of those rules is the Uniform Act. And so there's a lot of outreach that's involved with that, and again, even though your company may not be a transportation specific company, all of those agencies, they have outreach, publicity, any type of communications, public relations types of services. They need those services as well. But I found out about it, I think through their website, and just kind of keeping abreast of, you go to the agency's websites to see what types of projects that they have ongoing, which ones are up for bid, and then the buying plan.
Correct.
As well. So that's another form of learning about things before they happen, because the buying plan will tell you which quarter that they're planned for, and then you kind of keep up and go to the website and then look to see when the actual RFP is actually coming out. So when they're going to have their pre-bid meeting, and when the responses to the RFP are actually due. So with DBE, you can have it housed with different agencies, but mine is housed with the City of Chicago, but if I had to do it over again, I would do it with IDOT because of the services that they offer.
Correct.
And they also have each year they have a conference. IDOT has a conference for DBEs. Tomorrow's challenge, tomorrow's reward, or
I've never gone. I'm always
tomorrow's
in my mind
challenge.
gone, but something's coming up at the last minute. So I do plan to go this year. So hopefully when they put that date out, I can just mark it just to put a face, and then maybe try to do more business with them this year.
And I've been for the past 2 years, and I will say that it is heavily construction related. So if you have some professional services that are outside of the construction area, then it may not be worth a trip down to Springfield. Because I've gone in the past, and I've always kind of raised the question, well, where are the right-of-way people? The last year I went, they had one person from right-of-way. And then this year they might have some more. So because I've kind of put up a stink about it, In the past, I might have to go just to kind of show up and maybe bring some more right of way people there. But again, the services that they offer are local, so you can go to. In fact, it's up the street on Halstead. The DBE Resource Center.
Right.
So IDOT has a resource center specifically for DBEs, and the other agencies don't have like a dedicated resource like that. But there's kind of pros and cons because Metro has, I've heard Metro is the fastest as far as like getting your application through and that type of thing. So it kind of depends upon your personality, your area of business, who you may want to house your DBE certification with. So we did local, state.
We're moving to federal until I interrupted. So now we're going on to state, which is those are supposedly the longer lucrative contracts, lucrative contracts.
Mm-hmm. So those are your, and lucrative in the sense of the way the federal government pays. They generally pay quicker. I mean, we're in a shutdown now, but under normal circumstances, they pay quicker than some of your local and state municipalities. So with the federal programs, there's WOSB. Women-Owned Small Business. Correct. And then there's the 8A program. So the 8A program I would say it's race neutral, gender neutral, but it is geared towards, I guess there's a presumption that if you are a woman or if you're in a minority group, that you're economically and socially disadvantaged. And that's the motivation or why they have the 8A program. So with WOSB, that is women-based, and you can self-certify for that.
Self-certify meaning they are going on your application when you say that you are a woman. So they're not coming out to check to see if you're a woman. They're just going on what you present to them.
Right. So there's not a site visit, and actually they'll if you're already either a WBE or FBE in areas that recognize female business enterprises, you can upload your other certification, and then that kind of goes along with supporting that you're women-owned business. And then the other program is the 8A program, and again with that one, it's 51% or more, and that's the criteria is economically or socially disadvantaged.
And economics are you have to. Is it your personal net worth or is it your business?
So it's your personal net worth.
And what does the number have to be less than?
So it needs to be less than $250,000. And then they also look at with some of these certifications, they look at your business, but they compare it to nationally what that business. So within that NAICS code, we talked about NAICS codes in our previous video, but it's where whatever that standard is or that threshold is for that industry.
Okay.
So the threshold for a construction company may be higher than what it is for
a real estate company because of the amount of volume and the price points in that industry. So are both qualifications, is it an and or is it an or?
We'll see. Actually, that's a good question.
Because a personal net worth from $250,000, somebody could reach that in real estate assets, or is that cash based, or is that that's sometimes because I've gone to some seminars and I haven't quite got ready for like I said, I'm still trying to figure out when I'm going to apply for the application because the 8A is only good for 9 years.
Yeah, there is a threshold
for a year. The other ones they have a cap on dollars, but this one is whether you've done business or not, you're just out after the 9th year.
Right. And so you want to be strategic when you're doing the 8A because you want to make the most of it because there is a set limit.
Correct.
So
that's why I'm waiting, because I want to be very strategic and have a concerted effort how to network and how to actually get things on my get business and who I am targeting.
Yeah. So so what I have. So my notes. So an adjusted gross income for 3 years of $250,000 or less.
Gross income. So it's income, not net worth. Perfect. So that doesn't include because your adjusted gross income is.
Well, it's also your net worth. So it's your personal net worth is $250,000 or less.
Correct.
Your average adjusted gross income for 3 years is $250,000 or less. And adjustments are, we won't go into details as far as how that's calculated, but it's not just your gross. And then owned by someone with $4 million or less in assets.
So that's where your assets, your real estate will come in.
Mm-hmm. And then have the owner manage day-to-day operations and also make long-term decisions.
And then we'll make sure you're the owner and the person who's responsible for the decision making.
Right. And then have all its principles demonstrate good character. So with good character, and this is across all of the certifications, most of the applications, if not all of the applications, usually have a question asking whether or not you've been debarred from doing business from any certification. So has any agency, any state, local, federal authority said no, under no circumstances can you do business with this agency? And that may have been because of past acts that your company has done or that you as an individual have done. And that's something to, when you're making decisions and you're entering into agreements with prime contractors, something to keep in mind, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're being used as a pass-through.
Correct.
Because what will happen is you will be debarred and the prime will pay a fine. And the prime generally, they've made a business decision.
Right.
And so they'll pay the fine and continue to work, whereas you may be debarred from doing any business on a state, local, federal level for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So, and that essentially that length of time being stopped from doing work it puts you out of business.
Puts you out of business, and then especially if you were already doing business. And so there may be times when that may come up where a prime will want to put you on there, and then you're like, hey, what's going on? So definitely, if you're going after this, I know people say, oh, they could just pay me a check. That'd be just great. Don't do that, because it puts your business at risk, because you have the most to lose. And if you're going into it for that reason, then that's just not a good business decision anyway. But I will say, look out for that. Look at your contracts if they, don't want to give you a contract up front, because oftentimes, we're so excited to get the deal, we're so excited to get the project, or just anything, that we would just sign anything, or we would just start doing work without any agreement in place, and that is very common. Just take some time, and then the ones that do business with minority businesses all the time, they have agreements. I have agreements I've sent to people, just blocked out, just to kind of get a feel. Hire an attorney if you can't find an attorney. I can definitely send something of mine if somebody needed like a blank. I've done teaming agreements. Even if you have a proposal in place and you haven't even been hired, just make sure you talk about the terms, payment, and things like that. So the good thing about the city is you have a login on the compliance, and you have to log in if you were paid. Even if you weren't paid anything, every month there's a login that it asks you, how were you paid, how much were you paid, when did you get paid? Because they're doing a better tracking method, because this has been an issue for a fair amount of businesses, and so they just want to keep tracking. And that's another payment and tracking and teaming agreements. That's another session.
Yeah, and Actually, you raise a good point as far as getting an attorney, because and this again goes back to IDOT and the Resource Center. I'm doing another commercial for them, but that's how I first heard about Michelle Cantor.
Yes.
Who's very good with helping advising minority and women-owned businesses. And then she's also done things with SBA.
And the Women's Business Development Center.
The Women's Business Development Center. So again, as you obtain the certifications, they'll have outreach events, they'll have workshops to let you know and to keep you out of trouble.
Right.
To keep you in compliance. And this is a topic that we'll have for another video, but a commercial, what do I always have trouble with that word? Commercially useful function. So that's one of the things that make sure your business provides, acronym for that is CUF. So make sure your business provides a commercially useful function, and then that will also keep you out of trouble as well.
I think that was it for today. So hopefully you found this useful and you get some good tidbits. And as Michelle said, all of the links to the housing agencies will be attached to the video. And if you have any questions, let us know. And as for MBE Live, we are signing off. Happy MLK Day.
Yes, this is our service.